Now baby, you are the best. I never put no one above you. Got me banging on my chest.
Hi Julie.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing really well.
All right. For the sake of our audience, because you and I know each other,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
let us know who is Julie.
So Julie is a very bubbly human being. She loves life. She loves traveling, fashion. She's just living her life in the loudest way she knows.
Hmm.
And she's a big fan of herself. Basically, that's Julie.
Okay, and we know that beyond work, there's more to you than the work that you do. Do you want to
Yeah.
share with us what that's about?
So beyond work, I try my best to just look for opportunities to have fun. I don't have specific things that I would say I do that define me, but from time to time, I travel to different places. I find traveling so refreshing because I get to meet different people, engage with them, learn about them, see beautiful sceneries. So such things just give me so much joy. I am an ambivert, so I don't interact with people a lot, but when I do, I try to have the best conversations out of the interaction.
Maybe tell us what are the three things that motivate you?
To be honest, my love for money and a good life. Growing up, I didn't have a lot because my background was humble. So I would see other people enjoy all these nice things, and I didn't have the opportunity to enjoy all those things. So right now, because I'm in a position to do some of these things, I just use that as a source of motivation. So I love nice things, and that motivates me. And another thing, I love feeling like my work or whatever I involve myself in is making an impact in other people's lives. And this again is because of growing up and seeing how people who are living in different areas. So even right now, what I'm currently doing, I feel like is making an impact in other people's lives, and that just motivates me to keep going.
Can you please take us through your employment journey? Like, where did you start? What was your first job? How did you
Yeah, yeah.
transition and all that?
As I mentioned, I really love money. So for me, I started working when I was in first year in campus. So I met someone who taught me about article writing, and immediately I started doing the articles. Within 1 week, I had already learned what needs to be done, and I started getting money out of it. And I also ventured into marketing, so I was doing promotions. I
Oh,
was doing all these things.
interesting. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after that, I also started an online shop where I was selling thrift clothes. So I was just looking for different opportunities to get money. And
What Julie is saying is she's smart, she's a hustler, she doesn't wait for opportunities to come to her. She creates the opportunities. Sorry to cut you short.
no worries.
Yeah.
So after campus, to be honest, when I was doing my course, I didn't know where exactly that course would take me to. I didn't know where to apply, like organizations to apply to. So I got an attachment in a government office, and we would do the same things every day and every day. And that was so boring. And I was like, I need something that will help me grow because it felt redundant, and I wanted something to challenge me. So after that attachment, one day I just got an email that was asking me to go to an interview in a non-governmental organization. Yeah, so one day I wake up and I check my emails, and I get an email inviting me to an interview in a non-governmental organization. And they told me that it's going to be an internship, but a paid one. And I
Thank
remember,
God.
yeah, I remember at that time, I was just putting my CV everywhere. I was applying to different things. So I didn't even remember when I had applied for that. But I was like, this is a really good opportunity for me to just go and see what these people are doing. So I went on the website, I checked what they're doing. The work was around girls' education, and I'm a big fan of women empowerment. So I was
Okay,
like,
so
yeah,
quick.
let's do this. So I went for the interview, and they were asked. That was my first like formal kind of interview, and it was a panel. And in my head, I was like, okay, this is just an internship opportunity. Why are we having these so many people interviewing me? But I went through the process. They were looking for one intern, and we were like 6 people who were doing the interview. So eventually they picked somebody else because she had, I think, a master's at that point. I had just graduated from school, and she started working. And I think after a few months, they realized that they need more people. So they reached out to me, and yeah, that's how I got into the NGO space.
Whoa, that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so now I get this internship opportunity. I move into the organization. The people like me. I'm given more responsibilities. Then after 9 months, I was absorbed into the organization. So I needed to be at work from 9 to 5, and that exposed me to like so many opportunities. And I think at that point, I realized that I want to be in this NGO space, but I was still trying to figure out how that would look like for me, because again, I'm not a morning person, and 9 to 5 was just crazy. I would go to work very late sometimes. And at one point I was like, okay, maybe I need to look out for something else that favors the person that I am. I don't think I'm lazy because I don't wake up early in the morning. So when COVID came, we were required to work from home, and that was the best thing that
I
ever
can
happened to
imagine.
me. Yeah, because I would wake up like at whatever time I wanted. I would do my work as I watch my Netflix shows. So in 2022, when we were told, let's go back to the office, now you can imagine how that transition was chaotic and everything. But thanks to people who would help me get to work early. But it got to a point I was like, I feel like this organization, yes, it has opportunity for growth, but I want to transition to something else that matches what I'm looking for. So at that time, I was looking for, yeah. So I realized the physical 9 to 5 work environment wasn't favorable for me, because at that time I was doing my masters and I needed to be in class by 5 p.m. So that was chaotic, and I started considering an option of getting a remote job.
Oh, so given that you're now working remotely, so what was this transition like for you from a on-site role, like 9 to 5, basically,
Yeah.
to finding and looking for a remote job?
Yeah. So at that time, I decided to subscribe to LinkedIn Premium or something, and I could see these like different opportunities being posted. And at one point, I just came across a job, and the deadline was like in 3 days. And the responsibilities were, do I say, something lower than what I was currently doing. But for me, I didn't see like the title shift as a big thing. I was like, this is a new environment, this is a new organization, because the organization I work for started 3 years ago. So I felt like it has more opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
And I was like, in as much as this is I'm looking at this as an entry point to what I want in the future. So I was like, I'll take the job. And then when I get into the organization, I'm sure we'll transition to something that is bigger, or something that I'm looking for. So at that point, I knew that my CV writing skills are not the best. So I wrote my skills and everything, my experience and everything. And I reached out to someone on Instagram. I do not know them. They are a career coach or something. I reached out to them. I told them, these are my skills. Are you able to package me in a way that it will speak better about who I am and the experience that I bring? And yeah, the person was able to help me work on my CV. We had that. Okay. So the career coach helped me do my CV. And then after that, I was like, the last time I did an interview was in 2019. So I need a refresher. So I had a session with her where she asked me she asked me different questions that are likely to be asked in an interview setup. And then we just had an exchange, and she told me, remember to be authentic, don't give blanket answers and all that. Just be yourself and go and nail it. And I felt ready for the interview. So the interviews I did 3 interviews. And before the interviews, there was also after the first interview, there was a written assessment. But the questions were easy because, again, you remember what I said. I was going to a job that is a bit, the responsibilities are easier than what I was doing before.
Yeah.
So I went through the interview process. I spoke to 2 people virtually. And then I also had another like informal kind of interview with one person from that organization. And what am I talking about? Talk a little bit about the interview process. The first interview that I did, I felt so nervous, and I remember this recruiter telling me that don't tell me the things that you've already written to your CV. I want to hear more of like your experience and who you are as a person. And I even struggled answering questions like, okay, so now why do you want a remote job? Because if you're looking for a remote job, this question will come. And I remember at that time I was like, let me just be honest. I told this person I'm doing my master's and I want more time. The movement from work to home for me to be ready for my classes was hectic. And I also felt like at that time I wanted to spend more time with my family. So I felt like a remote job would give me that flexibility, because if you're working in a 9 to 5 organization, for example, if you have like a late weekend, on Monday you have to wake up, I don't know, at 5 a.m. and maybe you're in the club till 4:30. I'm not irresponsible, but sometimes you can have fun.
Life
Yeah,
is for the living.
yeah, so it was chaotic sometimes. And yeah, I when I was just answering that questions, I was like, I want to be as honest as possible. And I felt and I felt like that came a long way. When I was doing my second interview, I think the thing that made me tick, and they were like, oh, we feel like this is a perfect fit. I feel like I studied their website, like everything inside out. Of course, I didn't have all the information with me, but they asked me a question like, what does empowerment look like for you? And I just didn't want to give a blanket answer. So I was like, okay, for me, empowerment is this and this. And I can also give an example based on the organizations that you support. Like, for example, there's this organization that you support that does, they give funds to women to start businesses. So I was giving those examples, and the person that was interviewing me was like, oh, you remind me of a time when I was doing my interview and how hard I had studied about the different organizations that are being supported by organizations do. So that came in handy. And also I was confident enough to just let my camera be on the whole time. And there were moments where I was like, are you able to give me a minute to think about the questions you've asked me before I give a response? And I feel like,
what would happen between that minute? You're just there looking at each other, or you switch off your camera and you're like, okay, how do I answer
no,
this?
I wasn't switching off my camera. So I had a notebook and I would write down the question, because for me, I'm a very visual person. I feel like my ideas come, I envision my ideas very well when I write down things. So I would just write down things, and then when I didn't have an answer at all, I would ask the interviewer, can we come back to that question later on? Yeah, so we had moments where we would go back to a question. At the end of the interview, I would tell them, okay, now I feel like I'm ready to answer that question. So yeah, this is what I think.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, and I remember for the first interview that I did, after the interviewer seemed like it seemed like I had gone through the process, and she told me, these are the next steps. Of course, when you're told these are the next steps, you just know you're eligible for what is coming next.
Exactly.
And after a few days, I got a regret. Turns out the person who was sending communication made an error. And I was like, I feel like this job is mine, so I'm going to ask WhatsApp.
So you reached out back to the recruiter?
Yes, so I reached out to them. I was like, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to go through your process. It was also a learning process for me. And I had been told initially that the next steps would be meeting somebody else. So I'm just confirming if something changed in between. And then that was like on a Friday night. On Monday or Tuesday, the recruiter called me and she was like, we are very sorry for the error. You're moving to the next stage. So I was so happy that I reached out.
See, I keep saying, always reach out for feedback. You never know. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, and sometimes you might not get the feedback that you're looking for because there are so many applications, but you never know. Just try your luck and something might come out of it.
So after that, you were like, okay, there was this. It was an error.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? So you went to the next steps and then.
Yes, so I went to the next interview stage where I talked to now somebody from the top management. And because for me, what I usually do before I go for an interview, I will just go on LinkedIn, check out who this person is, just do something about them.
Yeah.
Because like before you start an interview, you have to create an environment. So it was easier for me. I think when you go to LinkedIn and read about different people, sometimes you can feel so intimidated, but then you just remind yourself, you know what, they're just humans. Like they are people like me, and it's okay to have conversations with people. Anyway, the worst thing that could happen is them telling you no.
Yeah, and you move on, and I'm pretty sure you've gotten a lot of no's in your life.
Yeah,
so this is just one of them.
Yeah. But basically, that was my interview process.
Honestly, I'm very proud of you because of reaching out. Because a lot of people would have just been like, tutu nani waste. They just wasted my time. They just wanted to get something from me. You don't see life. I mean, I feel like don't treat life like that. Just always take it positively and like, okay, maybe this was not mine, and then you move on. But you see, I'm happy you reached out.
Yeah.
So what do you do, by the way?
So I work as a program associate in an organization that drives funding to African organizations. So as a program associate, I support grant making processes and also portfolio services. So maybe just to give a little more detail on what exactly I do.
Yeah, because I also don't understand what a program associate does.
Yeah. So for grant making, basically it's making sure that there's a call for applications for organizations to tell us more about the organizations, and then we review the applications, and then we have like virtual site visits where we talk with people from those organizations just to vet their need for funds, and also if they are aligned with what we do, and then we give them funding. So that is what grant making looks like.
Okay.
Yes. And then for portfolio services, so now once you've been chosen to be given funds as an organization, so what a program associate does is, for example, if there's a conference, let's say in the US, and as a partner, you've never been to the US, so a program associate will maybe help you look out for maybe different accommodation options, share with you that kind of information for you to be able to secure accommodation.
Okay.
Other things that I also do include, for example, if an organization needs recommendation to another fund, another funder has requested for a recommendation for an organization, for example, in climate change or agriculture, because I've worked with you closely, I can put in a good reference for you that will increase your chances to get funding from that funder. But basically, it's just being in touch with now the partners. So now, if we are funding you, now we call you a partner. So basically, a program associate makes sure that they're in touch. So from time to time, I check up on the partners. I tell them what's happening in our organization. They tell us what is happening in the organization. So basically, that's just what my role entails, and it's really fun because you get to talk to you get to talk to people share their experiences, you get to learn a lot. Initially I didn't know that there are so many amazing organizations, but through this current job, I'm just like, it's the funding that is a problem, but the problem is not that there are no organizations to be funded.
So So we have really awesome organizations, but we don't have enough funding.
We don't have enough funding.
So does your job, do you do like globally or just in Kenya or in Africa, or are you a program associate for this organization that you work for globally?
Yes. So we support organizations in sub-Saharan Africa. So at the moment we have organizations in how many countries? Over 20 countries.
Oh, wow.
So at the moment, because we are still an organization that is growing, at the moment, with my other colleague, now the portfolio manager, we just support organizations that are all over. So I can't say that I'm particularly supposed to deal with partners from
Kenya.
So I just work with different
that
people.
That is fun. Yeah, you get to experience different cultures and you see different people.
And
the job is fun.
It is a lot of fun.
So normally I interact with a lot of remote workers, and why I particularly am very grateful that you agreed to do this with me today is because I have never met someone who works in the human rights department who is a remote worker. So I meet tech, I meet customer service, virtual assistants and all that, but your role is really interesting, and I know it will motivate a lot of people who are currently studying for what you did study for, or who think they cannot work remotely. They think they have to work on-site jobs here in Nairobi. So human rights roles basically involves physically interacting with humans. So you are someone who is in that field but works remotely. So how has that been, working remotely in a human rights organization or field?
Funny thing, I interact with people every day.
Yeah.
But now virtually. Now I see like I see where your question is leading to. But for me, in as much as I interact with people virtually, there are also certain networks or certain organizations that I know that usually set physical convenings where different partners from different organizations meet. So whenever I get this kind of invites, I'm just like, I want to go and see what's happening out there. But I don't feel like, because I work virtually, I don't get to interact with people so much. I feel like I even interact with people more in this current role based on how it is from what I explained, what I do. I feel like I interact with people more compared to how I interacted with them in my previous job.
So on a busy day, how many meetings do you have? Because I think your job must involve a lot of meetings.
So that is very dependent. So we have quarters where we have quarterly meetings with our partners. So for example, now between March and between March and May, we've been having calls with all of our partners. So you can imagine every day you spend like 4 hours on a call, because you will need 2 hours to speak to one partner and then 2 hours to speak to another partner. And we have like 35 partners. So you can just tell how much time you spend on the screen. And also that is not inclusive of maybe meetings that you're talking to your colleague on other things that need to be done. So on other days, it's crazy. You spend over 4 to 5 hours just in meetings. But when we are not having these quarterly meetings with our partners, I can say I spend maybe 2 hours on a call. And usually Tuesday is my busiest day because we have like a team meeting, and then you need to catch up with your supervisor. And then the others are just, so for our organization, we have catch-ups. So a colleague of yours can just set up a meeting with you to just hang out basically, and not talk about work. So that's that's basically how much time I spend on calls.
Okay, I think this is the last question. So I like that you've said that in your organization you do I don't know if it's random or planned catch-ups with your colleagues. I think that is very important because again, the human connection. And this is why I keep saying, as much as we are scared of the AI coming, AI will come, but it will never replace the connection that humans have. That there's nothing that can replace that. So sometimes it gets lonely and you get frustrated. So what is your wellness routine as an organization, as an individual who works remotely?
Okay, so for us, you are given a very nice package for health, kind of how do I health benefits, and you are the one to decide what you want to do with that money. And if you're wise enough, you would take part of that
to carnival and drink.
Because really, like, no one is monitoring how that money is being used. Basically, for me, we are given a package that you can decide on things that you want to put the money in. So if you want to go to a gym, if you want to get a coach, if you want to go to therapy, it's you to decide on what you'll do with that money. And the other thing for around wellness, we every month, if you want, you can subscribe to a co-working space.
Oh wow.
So if you feel like it's getting lonely at home, you can always go to the co-working space and just work from there and interact with humans if that's what you're seeking. For me, I struggle with that sometimes because I feel like co-working space sometimes are loud and there are so many people, and I don't want to tell everyone this is what I do, this is what I do. I find that conversation to be boring sometimes. But if the conversations are genuinely on someone wanting to know more about you, I feel like it's something worth considering.
Yeah, this is why I'm organizing a remote workers meetup for people like Julie who don't want to, we hang out, we have drinks, we laugh, we have wine, we talk about other things other than work. And sometimes you share experiences with other people. Oh, what's your organization like? What's your organization like? So that's coming up. I'll definitely send you an invite.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, but thank you very much. This has been amazing. Honestly, this has been really amazing. Your story is very inspiring.
Thank you.
And I know it will really touch a lot of people out there. It will motivate them. Yeah. So it's a wrap.